Hello, my name is Michael Driscoll, and in this particular tutorial, you will learn about importing. One of Python's strongest advantages over other programming languages is its large, comprehensive standard library. Here are just a few examples of modules that you might use. argparse for creating command line interfaces, email for creating, sending, and processing email, the logging module for creating runtime logs of program execution, pathlib, which you use to work with file names and paths, subprocess to open and interact with other processes, the sys library, which you use for system-specific functions and information, or urllib, which is good for working with URLs. There are dozens and dozens of other libraries. In fact, there are over 250 built into Python. You can see a full listing here. So how would you go about actually using these libraries now that you know about them? Well, the easiest way is to use import, but we're going to look at several other ways to do importing in Python. To start out, the simplest is just the import keyword. Here's how you might do it. Import like sys. If you want to find out what you have access to after you've imported sys, you can use Python's built-in dir function. So if we run this code, you can see that it prints out all kinds of data here. In fact, these are all the different functions and methods and variables that are in the sys module that you get access to when you run after you've imported it. This is called introspection and shows you what is inside the sys module. Other examples of introspection would be like using the help function. Let's try something completely different. Let's try importing this. When you import this, it prints out the Zen of Python by Tim Peters, one of the original core developers of Python, and I believe he's still one of the core developers. Basically, the Zen of Python kind of tells you a little bit about the design of Python and how you should design your own code. Beautiful is better than ugly, explicit is better than implicit, simple is better than complex. You can read the whole thing if you'd like. This is also known as an Easter egg in Python. Python has several other Easter eggs, which I'll let you discover on your own. So let's talk about importing multiple modules. One way to import multiple modules is to do import math, os, whatever other modules you want to import. So if I run this code, it'll import math and os, but of course there's no output, so you won't see that here. Another way that you could do multiple imports would be to put the imports on separate lines. So for each module that you want to import, you would just do import space, the name of the module, and then cage return, and import the next one, and just keep doing that over and over again until you've got all the modules that you want to import. In fact, if you look up the Python style guide, this is the recommended way to do imports. One import per line. Once you've imported a library, you can call its functions and classes. So now that we have the math module imported, we could do math.square-root. The square root of 4 is 2.0. You can use the math module's other functions too. So, if you want to find out more about that, you could do dir on math and run that. You can see that it has cosines, ceiling, exponential, factorial, lots of other stuff that doesn't even fit on the screen. There are other ways to import, like using the from keyword. The from keyword allows you to import specific bits and pieces from the standard library or other modules. There are times when it is nice to import only part of a module. So when you do that, you can say from whatever the module name is, import a specific piece of the module that you want. This is just pseudocode and not actual live code. So let's look at a more realistic example. So you can do from math import square root. What this allows us to do is now we can run square root directly instead of doing math.square-root. That is just kind of a shortcut. If you don't need to import the whole math module, this is a nice way to do it. I use this all the time. What if you want to import multiple submodules with from, though? This is how you would do that. From math, import whatever submodules I want. So I could do square root, but in this case I decided just to do sine, cosine, and tangent. So that's how you would import multiple. And in this case, when you're using the from keyword, this is actually the recommended way to do multiple imports, I believe. But some people could argue that it might make more sense to go ahead and do separate ones like we did before. I really don't care how you do it. The main recommendation that I will give you is to be consistent, whichever method you end up using. It doesn't matter to Python. Besides importing individual functions, you can also import anything else in that module. So some modules have variables that you can import or enumerations. Some of them have classes or submodules inside them. You can use the from keyword to import those as well. For example, the HTTP module has multiple submodules of its own. So here we import HTTP and then we import client. And you can use the type built-in function to determine what kind of item that you're importing. So here you can see it's a class module. Let's go back here, and we'll just do type of sine and see what that is. So that tells us that sine is a built-in function or method, whereas when you do that with HTTP, you find out that's a module. All right, let's talk about using the as keyword to assign a new name. So if I have a really long name for one of my modules, like PySimple GUI is a good example. There's a lot of letters in that particular library. I could shorten it up by using the as keyword. Here I'm just going to use, as a kind of a silly example, the math module. Math isn't that long, but I want to be lazy today. So I can import math as m, and then I can just do m dot whichever function I want to call. In this case, I'm doing square root. So this is one way that you can assign your imports to some other name, basically creating an alias. Likewise, if you'd like to have sine, cosine, and tangent spelled out instead of the short form that it is by default, you could do this. From math, import sine as sine with an E, cos as cosine, and tan as tangent. This is a quick and easy way to do this, and once it's reassigned, you can just call that new name appropriately. You can also import everything. You can import all the functions and variables and classes all at once. The way to do that is to do from module name import star. That will import everything into the namespace. That is usually not recommended, because if I have defined my own tangent function and then I do from math import all, I can overwrite the function that I have already in my code. And because I don't know what is already imported, I could write something else. So, from math import all, I might have my own square root function defined after that, and it ends up shadowing the name that is in the standard module, the standard library. And then I get weird errors where I don't understand what's going on because I've written a function that is masking the one that I want to use. So what I'm saying is, for the most part, don't do import star because you can have really subtle errors that can be confusing for you later. If you have any questions, you can let me know at any time. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it.